Well, hello again. We left off last time with my telling you about walking down to the Brandywine River, and the sun was behind me, and I was watching my shadow. And as I noticed, my shadow was moving faster when I moved faster or slower. And then if I turned and faced the sun, the shadow would follow me. And I thought, well, there was a teaching in this. And it came to me at that moment that when Christ said, seek first the kingdom of heaven, the inner spaciousness of the kingdom of heaven or of God, and all these other things that the pagans want will follow, health, wealth, you know, their survival needs will be met. It seemed to me that that was being illustrated in some way, that turning and facing the light, so that if I started to run toward the sun, toward the light, my shadow would chase after me. And so those words, that I had heard years ago uh, in Sunday school really made sense. So anyway, I guess the question is, in realizing that we are the light of consciousness, what's that about? I mean, why is that important? What's the benefit of that? And in those words, that if we put our focus on accessing that inner peace, that 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 love, and that mental clarity that we get, love, peace, and joy come with that. And if any of you have done meditation, you realize that stillness in those moments, you can feel great relief. So the question was, why did I ever get into all this? And it's a big and long story, but really all that I've done comes from when I first was writing my dissertation and finishing up my graduate school work. I wrote on stress, adolescents in a psychiatric hospital, and was measuring their stress levels by way of the EEGs that would measure the tension in the skeletal muscles, and the skin temperature test, which would measure the tension around the smooth muscles around the blood vessels. So that would indicate vasoconstriction or vasodilation. So meaning that the blood is flowing freely, or the tightness is causing the skin temperature to go down because there's the tension. So by those measures, they were given some task to do, and one group got the treatment group, which was called quieting response training, which was based on the idea that we all have a tendency, after we've been agitated and in gear, that is the emergency reflex, fight or flight, and getting into dealing with something that's stressful, we have an innate homeostatic kind of coming back to an inner balance after we've engaged in the efforts that we had to do to resolve something. And so most of our stress these days is not fleeing from some predator as in ancient times. And so the fight or flight response sometimes is overdone. We need a cool mind and a calm body. And so the QR training, which was developed by Dr. Charles Strobel at the Institute of Living, was to facilitate that using guided imagery, cool, I can keep my mind cool and my body calm as you exhale, no matter what. So as you see this chart behind me, I developed that after I'd done this kind of work, and in my first book, I drew upon my dissertation. So in a sense, starting in 1980, I've been using various tools and techniques to help people relieve their stress. Various forms of psychotherapy, cognitive, behavioral, analytic, looking back into the sources in the past that caused problems, which are now getting reactivated for people. So you can almost think of your childhood traumas as post-traumatic stress syndromes. Your father was withholding and wasn't validating. You have a boss that's like that, and it re-stimulates that. It brings back up that stress from the past. So really, getting in touch with and exploring why or how we're consciousness, the why of that is simply for inner peace. Now, along the way, in my studies when I first wrote my book, 8 Steps to Love, how to return to love when you need it the most, the moment stress and conflict begin. So, about that time, I had read Marianne Williamson's book, A Return to Love, based on a self-study program in spiritual psychotherapy called A Course in Miracles. And basically in that, it was teaching us through various lessons, a daily lesson, and that was the workbook and the major text that was getting us in touch with who we really are as spiritual beings having this human experience. So up until I wrote my first book, I was using mainly the traditional tools and techniques, breathing, imagery, and so forth to help people get in touch with who they are as a calm, cool and calm person in the midst of a stressful situation. So that still applies, and that still can be used, and I'm going to go over that at some point in one of the other talks. But for today, I thought I would just have you take a look at this idea of how it is that what the spiritual teacher Mooji has said, you are the light of awareness itself, the light of consciousness. And you are beyond that light as the witness of that light and of all that appears in it. So this brings us to this experience that I had that really, as we were talking before, is that there is within us this kind of eternal observer, this eternal witness. You could call it spirit or consciousness. And again, let's define consciousness. That in which all my experience appears and disappears, comes and goes. Whether it's sunny days, rainy days, good times, bad times, that in which all that takes place. And it's also that in which, that with which, or by which, all my experience is known. And lastly, it's that out of which, the substance of which all my experience is made. Because if you look at your experience, and I say, like, I'm touching my leg, what do I know of my leg? All I know of my leg is the touching, the experience of touching. But really, what do I know of the touching? I only know the knowing of touching. And so what's that? Well, what is knowing is basically consciousness, awareness, and I use those interchangeably. Okay, so in this way, when you're exploring who you are as consciousness, stopping in the course of a day, taking a breath, you can think of it this way. The peace of my spirit is just a breath away. Try it now. The peace of my spirit, thinking that as you exhale, is just a breath away. The peace of my spirit is just a breath away. And then as you close your eyes, as I said last time, you're shutting out the world, that one area of experience, what you see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. Of course, you might still hear something, but you're really trying to withdraw your attention from that. And then you're withdrawing your attention from the mind, from the things you're thinking, your thoughts, just stepping back. And you're withdrawing your attention from the body, the sensations in the body. So in that sense, you're stepping back is the Tibetan Buddhist practice, the Tibetan log meditation. I used to teach this to my patients. You treat your thoughts as though they're logs flowing down a river, your thoughts or feelings. And you stay on the riverbank as the thoughts flow by. So if a thought comes up that you like, you may have a tendency to jump in the river and grab it, or you may have a thought that you don't like and you want to submerge it in the river, push it away. As soon as you notice that, you come back to the riverbank and begin to watch your thoughts float by like logs. Every time you find yourself attached to a log or wanting to push one away, that is a thought, you simply take a breath, bring your attention back to your breathing, to the sensations of the air passing over your nasal membranes, and you can use the cool in, calm, out, cool in, calm out. Again, then you get knocked off center again by some thought or whatever, a sensation, a pain in your knee or something. Notice it, bring your attention back to the breath of life in its most fundamental form. And in its most fundamental form, then, this consciousness, which is really that which is this greater intelligence, like Eckhart Tolle has talked about it, like the sun versus our mind, like a candle, the light of a candle, a flame of a candle. That this immense intelligence is beating your heart right now as I speak to you. It's regulating your breathing. It's digesting food. It's taking care of all these things that your mind doesn't have to do anything with. However, what we do in cultivating our mind and monitoring our thoughts and choosing better feeling thoughts instead of ones that are causing negativity, watching what we're telling ourselves, that's where stress comes from, it's in here. We can facilitate our health and happiness. So the benefit of all this is really to facilitate our health and happiness, to have that greater inner peace, no matter what the circumstances. So like this week, the tropical storm effects rolled in. Bushes were blowing, trees, some limbs came down. The rain's torrential. I'm taking my little Maltese poodle out to try to take her to go outside to go to the bathroom, and she, I've got an umbrella. It's harrowing out there with this rain pounding down, and she's shivering. And so, while I'm out there, do I have to remain tense while I'm doing this and just agitated and telling myself I can't stand this? I gotta get out of here and cause myself stress, or can I take a breath and peace of my spirit is just a breath away, and then I'm doing what I have to do, coolly and calmly, focused, like a good athlete would do, or a dancer, in performance, instead of getting agitated and annoyed. That's like coming back to the riverbank, away from the logs that I'm trying to push away. So I think to myself as I'm going through this, that this too shall pass. And so one of the fundamental things I want to leave you with today is that in this, that we see, touch, taste, smell, and all this, and that we're feeling and thinking, all these things are transitory. They're coming into the vast spaciousness of the sky of awareness, if you want to use that metaphor, like clouds, and they pass through, and then a storm comes, it goes, sunny skies come back again, another storm comes, that goes, sunny skies come back again. And in the meantime, after the storm, and you look at the sky is still blue sky. Nothing has agitated it, nothing has damaged it. It's totally unaffected by the storms that came and left. That's who you are. That's what we're really working on getting in touch with. So, remember today, the peace of your spirit or consciousness is just a breath away. Have a great day.